Oh, hi there. Cello. Hey now. Hola. And ba weep grana weep ninny bong. However you want to say it. Welcome to that Kev1 show.
That Kev1 show is brought to you in part by T-Mobile, the Uncarrier.
Well, friends, when you see my guest on a program or film, you automatically feel the assurance of quality within it. You swear he's immortal, not just because of the sheer volume of his varied work through the ages, but also for his soothing, knowing voice. He's an award-winning actor, producer, and writer who's done it all, from Oscar-attracting big pictures to indie darlings, Marvel fare, and comedies, dramedies, and everything in between. You're going to say you love him, or oh wow, that's him? I do love him. Please welcome my guest, the great Fred Melamed.
Thank you. What a pleasantly florid introduction. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Oh, it's very deserved. It's very deserved from your storied career, from everything you've done, everything that we know of you, and more. And we're going to learn so much more, hopefully. But, oh, my Lord. Oh, man. How's your day finding you today?
Pretty good. It's as many of your listeners may be aware, there's a strike going on, a SAG-AFTRA strike, which prevents people from doing most of the usual kind of work that I do, and also prevents them from promoting a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's looking like that strike may soon be over, which we all fervently hope for. Although I must say, I think it was necessary because of there are all kinds of new technology and other things that have to be dealt with. So I'm glad we unified to be able to address them. But my day, to answer your question more succinctly, has been nice. Except with the slight proviso that I had to get 2 shots, one for COVID and one for the flu today.
Oh my gosh.
Expecting I feel fine.
Yeah.
I'm expecting by tonight or maybe tomorrow I may feel a little creaky. That sometimes happens.
Oh,
but,
no.
All to the good.
Yeah, no, all to the good. I love that expression. Yeah, like I'm literally just getting over the sniffles myself, and knock on wood, is there any wood around? I've never had COVID. Like I joke with my friends, especially if we're going out for the night or when we were going to Vegas. I tested negative for COVID, but positive for Brovid. But yeah.
I've had COVID twice.
Really?
And inoculated 5 times.
No. Oh
yeah,
my Lord.
And I have a girlfriend, a lovely girlfriend, who came down with it about 2 weeks ago. She came down with it, and I spent the night with her, being extremely intimate and doing all the things you might think might lend itself to easily getting COVID.
Yeah.
Not to mention arrested. And I still tested negative for COVID. So
wow. Wow. Maybe you're like Wolverine with that healing factor. Wow, that's incredible, though.
Well, I guess maybe I'm either I've had so many I've had it enough times, I've been inoculated enough times that either my system can deal with it or it just bypasses me as a body too cold and creaky to want to have it.
It just swerves out of the way now. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I just still can't believe I have. I mean, thankfully I haven't had COVID, but man, is it as bad as they say? Did you have the trademark symptoms of the no taste, no smell?
It's funny. I've had it enough times that the first time I had it, the twice that I've had it, neither one has been horrible at all. It's been like having a bad cold, really. The first time that I had it, I have 2 twin sons that are 21, and it so happened that it was around Christmas time a couple of years ago, and they both came down with it with me. And we all felt, I just assumed it was a cold because I really didn't feel that lousy. But my son said to me, have you noticed, Dad, that you're not tasting things very well? And I said, yeah, you're right. And, and that alarmed me, mostly because I was supposed to start work on a TV show called Barry that I've been on for a couple of years.
Love it. Yeah, I love it. I've seen it all. Oh, you're so incredible on that.
Thank you. So anyway, as it turned out, we did all have COVID, and they had to push my stuff back. It was meant to be shot at the beginning of the season, meant to be shot, and they had to, fortunately for me, they were able to reschedule it. So I had COVID that time. And the second time I had it, which was about a year and a half ago, it just seemed again like a bad cold. And this time, this iteration of it, for some reason, I didn't have that same thing where I couldn't taste things. So I think that the different versions of it are slightly different COVID and how they affect you. But I luckily for me, I haven't been very profoundly affected by it. But I was very frightened by it because I had 3 friends die from it.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry for your loss. Really? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm 67, so I'm the right age, and also, very early, they didn't know much about it. They didn't know how to treat it, and people didn't know that they had it. So, and one friend of mine, a girl that I went to high school with, a dear friend of mine, got it early on, and she spent like 3 weeks in one of those respirator machines. And she ultimately was fine, but it was, very scary, as you can imagine.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Jeez.
Well, listen, she's doing fine. And
yeah.
But this was kind of a national. Nobody alive, I think, has ever lived through it. When my dad was a very young boy, in the 19-teens, there was a horrible Spanish flu epidemic, which some people may know about, but nobody in my lifetime remembers anything like, a widespread. Thing like COVID.
It's just so wild, isn't it? Doesn't it feel like, and I hope I'm not sounding crazy here, doesn't it feel like we're living in some sort of constant, like, season finale or something like that? Like, I remember when 9/11 happened, I was alive for that, and I was like, well, I mean, I was still pretty young, but I was like, whoa, this is crazy. It was like my Vietnam, and now it's just like, that feels like that was like, not a small event, mind you, at all, but like, just like it's just not dwarfed, but like, and now we've got COVID and just so much to the point where
some of us are lucky to it. I remember when 9/11 happened. At the time, I was working for CBS. I did a lot of voice work in those days, and I was the voice of CBS News and CBS Sports.
Wow.
And I lived out in Montauk, which is a little tiny town on the very easternmost tip of Long Island, just a long way from the city. It's 2.5 hours driving from New York City. And when it happened, I was supposed to go into the city that day to work for CBS, but I happened to turn on the television after I took a shower, and I saw this, this unbelievable sight, and they closed all the entrances, all the bridges and tunnels into New York City, so I knew not to go. But I remember taking a walk that day, and there was a path by the beach, and I remember thinking how lucky I am to have lived in a time when war and attack from hostile entities and natural disasters are a rarity. Most of the people that are my age lived through maybe Vietnam and some other things, but we've never lived through a really severe war that threatened us on our shores, or had to worry about being moved out of our homes, or other kinds of things that people throughout history have dealt with routinely. So I realized from that, as I was walking along the beach, and there was no airplanes because they stopped all air traffic when 9/11 happened. It was, eerily silent. I remember having this thought that, I'm lucky to have lived in a time when this is such a rarity, such a strange feeling for most people.
Yeah, just so wild. And I kind of felt like the world's never going to be the same, after that.
Well, maybe it won't be. The world does change. One of the things that you learn as you get older is that the world does change, and many things that you might take for granted or might have assumed are perennial or eternal aren't. I remember when I was a kid, I bought one of the first record albums I ever bought on my own with my own money. Was this album by Jefferson Airplane called Surrealistic Pillow. I bought it, and it said on the back of it, from the record company, I don't remember what the record company was, but it had on the bottom of it these words. It said something like, this high fidelity stereo recording represents the ultimate in sound technology. It will never, ever be replaced. It will never be antiquated. Well.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we have a certain hubris. We have a certain, swagger, and think that it could never, things are the ultimate. Well, they're not the ultimately good or the ultimately bad. They're just, and I think every generation has this same kind of, I guess, nostalgia for when we were younger. Everybody my age says, God, I feel bad for people that are growing up today. When I was a kid,
Yeah.
you could ride your bike around. Your parents didn't worry about you being attacked or molested. You could, the usual thing was your parents would tell you when the street lights went on, you should be home for dinner.
Yeah.
They didn't bother you. They let you run around. And, people have, and in my father's generation, he had his, I don't remember all the things that he said, but, we all have things like that, and the world changes. I think for people my age, when we look at people that are growing up now, how separate everybody is, how alienated from one another, how social activity is centered around screen time. Everybody walks around, looking at their phones, and it seems like people have adjusted socially to the idea that you are alone most of the time.
Yeah, no, totally.
That's very different. To give you an example, I have a son who's 21. When he graduated, he did very well when he graduated from high school. He got into college, got a scholarship and all that. I wanted to give him a nice present, because he had done so well in high school. So I said, I was thinking of getting you a car before you go off to college. And he said, wow, that's really nice of you, Dad. I really appreciate it. But I really don't need a car. I have my friends and stuff, and, we talk. And I thought, Jesus, when I was his age, I had to share a car.
Yeah.
But, without a car, your sex life was dead,
Yeah, no, totally, yeah. How many first times did I have in a car? Yeah, I mean, maybe almost all of them. I mean, a lot of them at least, yeah.
Well, now he has a car, and appreciates having a car, but, it struck me as a very different generational feeling about a lot of things, but notably that.
Well, he said kind of like, I have friends, as in like he has so many friends with cars, he just doesn't need one, or what? Like it's just so sociable to get in his best friend's car.
They don't get together that much physically.
Oh,
they like to use the computer.
yeah. That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
It's like if you went to Hawaii or some destination vacation that you think of most of your life. I'd love to go here to England or wherever. Like most people would be on their phones. It's just so funny when you get there. You're at the nicest restaurant, the most beautiful architecture, and you're like, and they're on their phones.
Well, it's kind of like it doesn't. It's kind of like it never happened. If you haven't put it on Instagram, or you haven't documented it with photographs, it's kind of like it didn't officially occur, kind of thing. I think people feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to talk. I love having phones. They're great. You could do fabulous things with them. But like all changes, there's parts that are not enviable, and there are parts that are very important.
Mm-hmm.
But things do change, as time goes on. This strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike that I alluded to when we first got on. One of the main sticking points that they haven't. One of the things they agreed about many things. One of the things that they haven't been able to agree about is the use of AI, artificial intelligence, because everybody knows, including the actors, that that's where the whole of the business of the movie and television business is going.
Yeah, how could it not? It's
what
crazy.
I mean by that is, if you look at, like, for example, my son likes to play video games like many kids do, and I often play with him. Well, I'm not as good as he is, but it's interesting to see. So one of the games that we played in the last couple of years that we both really enjoyed is Red Dead Redemption 2, which probably many people are familiar with.
That's the Western one, right? I want to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, first of all, it's so many hours of it's like 28 hours of play, unbelievably beautiful to look at, and it's so realistic that it's like watching a movie. It's like it's like being inside a movie.
Yeah.
And the technology exists to make whole movies that way now.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody knows, and as computation becomes faster and cheaper, it's not going to be worth it to go make a movie on location in Africa or Australia.
Yeah. Huh.
So once models are made of actors and of realities of different kinds, it's going to be far less expensive and far easier and far freer in terms of what you can do, visually and otherwise, to do things electronically, to do things through computers. So because of that, actors are understandably worried. What the producers were proposing in that $1 million that you get a one-time payment.
Yeah,
Then they take a digital, what is essentially a digital.
So enraged me,
yeah.
Right.
And they can do whatever the hell they want with it.
And they even talked about it for extras, which were background artists, which was so insane. Because I don't know if you have a lot of friends in background. I have some friends in background, or when they're doing that, and like, man, that's like, it's like minimum wage. It might be minimum wage. It's pretty close, if not. And like, to be paid for one day's work, but you're in a crowd constantly, and for Transformers 47 in the future or something, it's just, that's insane to me.
Well, think about it. Think about, if you have a big scene with a restaurant or a football game or something like that, you have to hire, those guys, extras make in the neighborhood of about $140 a day, something around there.
Right, yeah.
Like that. But let's say you have 10 days and you have to hire 300 extras. Well, that turns out to be quite a bit of money for a producer. So, and of course, they're always looking to save money, as well you might understand. So that doesn't surprise me. And in the case of extras, they could, if, for example, they have a large crowd scene, they can duplicate people several times and nobody would notice.
Oh my god, I'm imagining like a bad video game, like you'd play those old wrestling games and it's the same 5 people in the crowd. But yeah,
but times 200.
Yeah, it'd be a fun game to play, but horrible reality. It'd be like, oh yeah, there's the same balloon guy. Oh, it's the same odd-looking old lady. She's there. She's not as as frequent as the other zeros and one people, but
right
wow.
Now she has a mustache.
Yeah.
I think people will always need stories. People will always need to be engaged in novellas or stories. I think people will want to have television shows and movies or something similar forever. But I think in the way that they're made is going to be is going to change over time. They're going to be streamlined. The production of them to as much as possible, made as cheaply as possible, and giving as much sort of digital freedom as is possible. So even though the need still exists in people, I think the way that the need will be addressed will change over time.
I really wonder where we're headed technology-wise with it, really, because, I mean, it's just like everyone, like you said, you need a story. Even these people with, like, no attention span who are just watching a TikTok and they're watching the little mini tale within the TikTok, it's kind of like a funny, do you remember Quibi, how that was almost a thing, but then it went under, I think because of COVID, really, because people needed more streaming hours, but that almost seems like the model that we're probably headed to.
Well, I mean, I do think you're right that people have become much more impatient, much less interesting to, there's an interesting phenomenon. So I like to listen to recorded books, with certain authors in particular. And when I was a kid, my mother and father were old enough that they remembered pre-television days when radio was the big thing.
Yeah.
People were so, I don't mean music on radio, but stories.
Yeah, my father was into that. I used to listen to, he put him on, I guess it must have been VHS. It might have been a tape deck he had in his old car, but like The Shadow and old serials, right? Yeah.
So my point, the reason I'm bringing it up is the people were devoted to these things, loved them deeply. And part of what happens is when you are a participant, in other words, you're hearing the words, but there's no visual. So you have to come up in your mind with the visualization. That act gives you a proprietary relationship with that story, and it becomes partly yours. When it becomes partly yours, you get deeply attached to it.
Yeah.
So it's less passive. Now, don't get me wrong. I love movies. I love the whole thing.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. But this is a great subgenre, so to speak, right? It's almost like the cousin of reading in a way, because you're imagining it in full on, slightly less full on, but yeah.
Yeah. So as time goes on, I mean, I'm speaking in broad generalities, but people seem to become less interested in doing the work, that kind of work. It seems like work, so they would rather have things, presented to them. And don't get me wrong, there's a nobility in providing entertainment for people that I completely believe in. That's one of the things that I really like about being an actor, is that I don't poo-poo the opportunity to, have somebody come home from a difficult day's work or other kinds of conflicts in life that are difficult or troublesome, and they turn on the television, they get to watch something that is truly, entertaining and truly, gives them a deep kind of satisfaction or happiness or interest. So I think I do think that's great. But it's also true that the nature of what constitutes entertainment has changed. I mean, when I was a kid, for example, there have always been movies that are aimed at sort of artistic, heights, and movies that are more geared towards popularity. That's always existed. Yeah. But when I was a kid, there were many movies that inhabited a space that covered both poles. I mean, I can think of Lawrence of Arabia, for example, big hit when I was a kid.
Yeah. Ben-Hur, maybe.
Godfather, when I was a later age, when I was a young adult. Other movies like that, which were both artistically complex, satisfying, but also had enormous commercial power. Nowadays, that middle kind of stuff that covers both needs, that covers both poles, has pretty much mostly gone to television. Movies, that is feature films, are either, very high budget, heavy tech, comic book derived things, Marvel kind of stuff, or they're little indies that cost, $1 million or $2 million or $500,000, and they're made, usually by an individual that has a particular idea and is able to make it inexpensively, and somebody is willing to either buy it or take a chance of producing it. But the middle ground stuff that's relatively inexpensive but still not cheap, but that has artistic merit as well as kind of potentially be really popular, is pretty much gone away from feature films. Pretty much. There are some people still making it. I mean, I would argue that there are some people still in that sweet spot, like Paul Thomas Anderson, Martin Scorsese, Alexander Payne, others. Probably easily come to mind, but they represent a smaller and smaller share of the movie-going population consumed.
Yeah. It probably goes mostly to, like you said, the like these amusement rides, like the Marvels and the Fast and the Furious type stuff. Or, I mean, maybe best case for the niche films, that's be very niche art house films where you can only see it at the theater briefly almost, because a lot of these in-between ones probably kind of bomb out more. People might be kind of like, why not wait for streaming or...
And why should if the studio knows that they release something with a name on it that is familiar, if they're releasing Adventures 7 or 8 or 9, whatever it is, even if it doesn't get well reviewed, just the fact that it has that recognizable name guarantees them a significant enough audience that they're not taking a huge risk with it. And international sales and all that kind of stuff. Now, I've been in Marvel stuff, and I enjoy Marvel. I like it. I'm not talking it down. But it's good to have a choice, and it becomes harder and harder to produce these kind of middle sort of class of feature animal.
That is wild. Huh. This really makes you wonder where we're all headed with it. Yeah.
Well, where we're headed, I don't know, but I do know kind of what's going on. Where we're headed, who knows? I'm sure that movie theaters are getting more and more and more squeezed. Nowadays, movies used to be a kind of cheap form of entertainment. You could go. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in New York City, and people would go to the movies just because movies were air conditioned. Other things were not. In New York, it's very humid summertime. So people would go to a movie just to, and they'd see, and people would go to the movies serially. They'd go to a movie or two every week. And it used to be like if you had a family, like I have 2 kids and all that, you could take your family out to a movie, and it was a relatively inexpensive form of entertainment. Nowadays, if I were to go out with 2 kids and a wife and want to go to a movie in the suburb, in suburban LA, Well, you're talking about between the four of us and the parking and popcorn. Talking about $200.
Oh my gosh.
It's not.
Yeah.
And it's pretty shocking, and so it's different now. So, why do people want to have big screen TVs and watch everything? Well, that's why pretty much is because you don't have to leave the house, and it doesn't. You're already paying whatever you pay for your streaming services or whatever you use, and you're not gonna incur an extra $150 to go out to see the movies and then have a hamburger.
Oh, one of our patrons just popped up with a question. Let's see. Fred, big fan, they say. Do you prefer playing fully fictional characters or ones based off real people like Howard Hughes? It's a very distinctive example.
They're both interesting. I think, in a way, I prefer fictional characters because when you play real characters, you feel a certain responsibility to... You don't have to necessarily have everything be accurate in your presentation, but you feel a certain responsibility to not misrepresent the person that they were. I had a funny experience the other day. I was in Costco just shopping, and
love Costco. Been a Gold Star member for a while.
A lady stopped me, and she said, "You played Bill Ginsberg in American Crime Story." I was in this American Crime Story show years ago.
Ryan Murphy, right? Yeah.
Right. Ryan Murphy directed it, and it was about the particular one that I was in was about Monica Lewinsky and Clinton. Very interesting experience. And I played this guy called Bill Ginsberg, who was Monica Lewinsky's attorney, and he was a family friend of her father's. And when she got to the legal trouble that she got into, he swooped in. Said he would defend her. He was actually a medical malpractice attorney and had very little experience doing the kind of legal work that she required. And he actually wound up really screwing up her case badly. But he thought it was going to be a kind of a showcase for him. And he tried to do kind of Ethel Bailey showmanship stuff, and it really hurt her. Anyway, this was a very juicy part that I got to play. I really enjoyed playing it. This Ryan Murphy series. And I was in Costco the other day, and this lady walked up to me and she said, "You played Bill Ginsberg on American Crime Story?" I said, "Yes," and I was surprised that she recognized me, because I'm often recognized, but I was wearing a wig in that movie. I was wearing a hairpiece because he was a real guy. And she said, "I'm Bill Ginsberg's widow. I'm his wife."
Oh my God!
She said, "I want to tell you that you really captured him."
Oh, wow!
That made me feel very good, because I kind of made it out to be kind of a jerk in a way, but kind of a likable, some things that you admire about him. But it pleased me that she didn't feel that I had, disgraced his memory. Interestingly, he didn't live too long after the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. He got cancer and died at a relatively young age. Anyway, it was interesting to have her, and very pleasing for her to have her tell me that I had captured something. When I had never met him, I looked when I was preparing at some video of him, and he gave a lot of press conferences, so it wasn't hard to find him. But I wanted to sort of capture his kind of swagger, his kind of the kind of slaving lawyer kind of show offiness, but not make it look like she couldn't trust him. Anyway, so that was an interesting experience about playing somebody who's real. But I do like playing people that are fictional, because you have the
room to breathe, right? Kind of room to create a bit, right?
Yeah, you have a freer hand. You don't have to feel the responsibility to play anybody in a particular way. It's funny, I know recently you interviewed a friend of mine, a filmmaker, an actress that I worked with fairly recently, called Wendy McCall. And recently made a movie called Fuzzyhead that I was in. So when she approached me, I've known her for a few years, and we were supposed to do another movie of hers some years ago together, and all of a sudden something else came up, and I had a conflict with a movie that I needed to do because I needed to make some money, and her movies get paid very much, so I had to do this other movie, so we didn't get to do this first movie. So when the second movie came up, which has now just been released, called Fuzzy Head, or being released, I wanted to work with her. So she sent me the part, and I don't want to ruin that movie for people that haven't seen it. But she is about a woman who has a difficult relationship with her mother, and her mother dies, and the woman can't remember. She has PTSD, and she has a suspicion that she may have killed her mother.
Oh my God!
But she's not sure if she did it or not. And as a result, she kind of goes on the lam. She runs and tries to hide. And in part of her hiding, she winds up working in a brothel somewhere. And there's some scenes of her and other people working in this brothel. She's reduced to that. She doesn't have any money and so on. So I play this guy called the quadruped. He's called the quadruped because he walks with two canes. He walks with difficulty. And when he comes in, it's clear that he's a regular at this brothel and that he has some habits that are a little, let's say, a little exotic in what he does with the women in the brothel. So she's frightened. Now, I read the scene as she wrote it, and I said to her, and she had just written this, and I said to her, listen, I have an idea about how to do this a little differently. I have this kind of idea. And she said, well, yeah, I'm interested. What is your idea? And the idea was to change the character somewhat. I had this idea that I wanted to play a character who the women, the prostitutes are intimidated by, are afraid of. But it turns out that when he gets them in the room, he doesn't attack them sexually. He wants to know their stories, and he invades them. You might even say he rapes them by demanding to hear their stories. But in fact, he winds up ultimately being kind of sympathetic to them and good to them, although he's rather direct and sort of intimidating in the way that he behaves. So I wanted to try this instead of what you kind of expect. And Wendy was all for it. She liked the idea, and we did it. So when you work on something that's never been done, and especially if the person that you're working with is directing the film and wrote the film, like Wendy, is game to try different things, it's kind of experimental, bravery. Sometimes it can be really wonderful, and I recently saw the film. I hadn't seen it, so it was all cut, and I was very pleased with how it came out, and the kind of leap that I was trying to make. I felt, when I see myself in things, I don't always think, gee, Fred, you're terrific. I often think, oh shit, why did I do that?
Really? Oh.
Yeah. So, but in this particular idea, I was pleased that she allowed me to do it, and I thought it came out pretty good, pretty well, given what I was trying to do with it. So sometimes, it can be great fun to work on things that are kind of just being formed, and the movie came out very interestingly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's getting rave reviews. It won Best Picture at Slam Dance, for example, I know.
Yeah, Best Screening.
Is that where you saw it at, or did you see it at a different screening? Or?
No, we had a screening here in L.A.
Ooh,
which we went to.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm trying to see if I can see it on the big screen out here in Portland, or if I'm just going to have to stream it. Actually, I know it's streaming in many sources. She just said to my fans just to Google it with her name and find the best streaming place.
I know you can stream it now. It may come to theaters. I'm not sure. It's being released by a major releasing company.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether or not they're doing. I don't know what their plans are for it. I know you can you can order it on your TV, but I'm not sure whether or not you can see it in the theater.
Yeah.
It has a lot of sort of, I don't know how to explain it, kind of psychedelic.
Yeah, the trailer is very trippy, and
yeah. So that kind of movie, it's pretty. If you can't see it on a movie theater screen, I would say it's probably worth it because it has very kind of mind-bending quality to it, which you might get more of it on a big screen,
Yeah, and I kind of want to see it with my love, and but it's like funny when you watch a movie nowadays. It's like kind of drives me crazy. That's piggybacking back to technology a smidge. It's like, if you notice when you watch movies with people, like at home, people just like migrate to their phones, or they're just constantly distracted. So it's like, I really want to watch it on the big screen if I'm watching with anyone else, especially.
Right. People do that in theaters. I see people in movies
No.
on their phones all the time.
Oh,
Yes.
I mean, I believe it now more than ever. But jeez.
Yeah, it seems weird to me, especially if you pay $20 to go.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, hello.
But people can't. I guess people can't be separated from, or they're bored by the movie.
Yeah, that was a great conversation I had with your director, that fuzzyhead, Wendy McComb. She agreed last week that film is war. You know, just to get it done, the show must go on mentality. The lack of glamour with the whole go-go. Do you have any particular, like, you know, war stories that come to mind from any shoots at all?
Oh, lots of them. But
Yeah.
one thing that I would say is that you have to remember that film, even indie film, the inexpensive films, are a forced marriage between commerce and art. And the art part is always the battered bride and the forced marriage. Because it's so expensive to make movies, even making, you know, indie movies. It's so expensive
No, totally.
that you always wind up having to alter what it is that you imagined. And, you know, it's funny. I'm very influenced by the Cohen Brothers. The Cohens are friends
Legends.
of mine.
And you did A Serious Man. I believe you won an award with them, right? Best ensemble.
I did.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, I won an award, which I was very proud of. This was 2010.
Such a good film, yeah. By the way.
But they made a big impression on me. And interestingly, they were. I was talking to him. So Joel Cohen was originally an editor. He began as a film editor for Sam Raimi. If you know Sam Raimi.
Love Sam Raimi. Yeah, Drag Me to Hell is one of my newer favorites.
That's how Joel began.
Yeah.
And part of their whole orientation towards film is that of an editor. That is, they don't include anything that's. Everything in the film has to either move the story forward or add to your depth of understanding about the characters. They don't put in anything, you know, you have to kill your darlings, as they say in the film. Oh, wait, get rid of stuff.
They make sure to trim all the fat.
Right. But you're also, you know, you're trying to catch everything on the day when you're making something, so that you have the raw material. I'll tell you just a little story. This is not about the war, but this is a funny, true story about movie.
Yeah.
So, in movie making, there's something called an over, or an over the shoulder, which means when you see a scene of two people talking, which is what most scenes are in movies, you'll see a close-up of the person who's talking, but it's often shot from the back of another person's head. So you see the back of the head of one person and the other person talking. This is a very well-known shot in movie. It's called over the shoulder, or an over for short.
Yeah, it's even in soap operas. Everything. Yeah, almost.
Everything.
Yeah, it's almost like a player one kind of view, right? In a way.
Right. Exactly.
First shooter kind of.
So here's my story about that. Several years ago, I was sitting in a Chinese restaurant with my wife, eating dinner, and this guy started looking at me. Now, when you're an actor, this happens frequently. It's nothing that and people kind of they think they know you. They're not sure where. People run up to me and go, "You did my kid's braces, right?" You know, they know that I look familiar. But
and you've been in so much, and your voice, you probably get recognized oddly all the time, huh? Probably.
Nowadays, I get recognized more for what I do. It's not, people don't think that I'm,
they're not less suspicious looks, less like,
Right. So anyway, I'm sitting there in this Chinese restaurant, we're having dinner, and this guy starts looking at me, which, it's no big deal, it happens frequently. But he's like really looking at me a lot. And at one point, he gets up, stands up, and walks behind me.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I was getting a little uncomfortable, but I didn't want to turn my head around and look. And I said to my wife, "Is that guy still there?" And she said, "Yes." She said, he's standing looking at the back of you.
Oh my God.
And finally, he walked up to me and he said, "You're Fred Melamed, right?" And I said, "Yes, I am."
Okay.
He said, "My name is," whatever his name was, says, "I'm an editor. I've been looking at I'm editing a movie that you're in. I've been looking at your overs for hours and hours and hours. I just want to make sure it was you. I know the exact way to the back of your head."
He could mold you. He knows you that well.
Right. That's an actual true story.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
The warlike aspect of it, let's see, I mean, you're always racing against time and against... Here's another thing with the Cohen Brothers.
Ooh, yeah.
Along the same lines.
Love the Cohen Brothers so much, yeah.
They have... one of their movies... I have a sort of a theory about the very best filmmakers, my favorite filmmakers.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
I would say this about the Coens. I would say it about Paul Thomas Anderson. I would say it about Martin Scorsese. I would say it... not all their films are great.
Okay.
They have films that are unbelievably great, in my view.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of films of theirs that I can't look at. I really don't like them at all. But from my perspective, there's a certain leap involved in making movies. There's a certain bit of unknown magic that has to happen. And sometimes you take a spill. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you like. I mean, they may have liked it, but I didn't like it. Anyway,
sure.
So the Coen Brothers made a particular movie called The Man Who Wasn't There. This is a movie that I love, and it's one of their lesser-known movies. It stars Billy Bob Thornton. He's terrific in it, in my opinion. But it's a really, really beautifully shot, beautifully made, haunting, great movie. And it happened to come out right around 9/11. And it was kind of obscured by the fact that it came out around 9/11, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
We're talking about the movie so much. Anyway, it's it's probably my favorite movie of theirs of all time. But it didn't make much of a blip on the radars of most people in the movie business because of when it happened. Anyway, I was telling Ethan Cohen, the other Cohen brother, who used to do most of the writing. It used to be that Ethan would do most of the writing and Joe would do most of the directing, but then they kind of started sharing it. Anyway, I said to Ethan, I love The Man Who Isn't There. It's such a great movie. It so hurts me that people don't acknowledge it because it's so terrific. I just love it. And he said to me, Billy Bob's wig never fit right, and we couldn't get this location. And James Gandolfini, who's also in it, could have big conflict because of Sopranos. And he listed about 20 pain-in-the-ass things. How he thought of this. To me, it's like this unbelievable opus.
Yeah.
He was saying, that was a big pain in the ass. Things never went right. And I learned from that the exciting part to them, the most exciting part, is when there's in their little office that they have, and they're pitching ideas back and forth and writing the dialogue, and they actually act out the dialogue like actors, and they get it in their heads what they want. They have this thing in their head that's what they want. And of course, you never get what you want. You get this kind of amalgam between what you had in mind and what you could do, given the limitations of, that confronted you. But by the time you're actually making the movie, it's all a series of obstacles to be solved. It's a series of problems to be solved. So that for most direct, here's another, people are running up to you all day long saying, do you want this one or this one? Do you want to do this shot here? Do you want to do it there? Do you want the red shirt? We can't get this actor. Would you settle for this actor? We can't get the thing you wanted. How about this place instead? Will you settle for doing it in the studio instead of doing it on location? What do you think about having 3 horses instead of 11? 11 horses is too expensive. Endlessly, this kind of stuff. That's what directing is. So that's how the experience was for them. I thought this was a fantastic movie, and they were like, this is not good. And Joel told me, Joel, who was the editor of the two, told me it's the same experience with almost every movie. You're shooting it, and as you're shooting it, you're looking at dailies, what are called dailies in Russians, which means the footage that you shot that day. Like everybody will come, if whoever wants to will come, and they'll screen what was shot the previous day, and you'll see it. He said, you look at dailies, and you think, this is pretty good. This is coming out good. Then you look at what's called your first loose assembly. A loose assembly is your first very, very rough edit. He said, you look at your first assembly, and you think, this film is unsalvageable.
Oh, no.
Total piece of shit.
No.
This film could never be released. It's total mess. It's not at all what I had in mind. It's completely disappointing. And he said, little by little by little, as you work on it, it retakes its shape and sometimes approximates what you had in mind. Never that close. Never that closely. You know, little by little it begins to take its shape again. But there's always this thing where your heart drops. You go, oh Jesus, this is totally untenable. I can't do anything with this. This is just a waste. He said every movie has that same experience to it, and little by little it comes back, or to some extent it comes back. Anyway, also movies involve discommoding a lot of people. You know, you have to close streets and rent locations and all that kind of stuff. And it's all against the clock because the longer it takes, the more expensive it is. Mm-hmm. So it does, but you do have to take this kind of attitude, like we're fighting the battle of the bulge. It's kind of military.
It's like all an impossibility. It's like all an impossibility. You know, it's crazy.
Right. It takes over. But if you don't do it that way, you never get anything done. You have to be, you know, it's a lot of people that have to be herded, you know, all at once. It's a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, people might think the Cohen Brothers have it like, super insanely glamorous with all their success and brilliance, but they probably spend more time often than not when they're working, like a single parent, barely putting both shoes on, running out the door, toasting their teeth, you know, like stressed about this shot, this thing that was impossible, the sundown that didn't happen on time, and you know, etc.
Right. It's war. I mean, they still love it. They love actors.
Oh yeah.
They love the experience of making it. But it's a lot. It's one problem to be solved after another. Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny. I worked a lot with Woody Allen. And Woody Allen. I did 7 films with Woody Allen. And Woody Allen is a person who doesn't really like hanging out with people. You know, he's kind of solo. He once told me, I did a play on Broadway that he wrote. Well, actually, Ethan Cohen, 3-1-X. Ethan Cohen and Woody Allen wrote 2 of those.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Anyway, I was sitting backstage with him, and he said to me, you know, honestly, making movies is an enormous pain. You know, if I could just write every day, get up, you know, walk around, take a nice walk in the park, write for 4 hours, and then have my nice. He has the same dinner every night. He likes filet. He has filet of sole with green beans and a potato.
Oh wow!
The same. My fish. And then watch a basketball game on television. After that, I would be very happy. That's really all I want out of life. But the fact is, I don't trust other people to make my movies. You know, when you write a script, when you let somebody else make it, it winds up far afield from what you had envisioned. So he said, I just can't trust somebody else to do it. But he's an odd person to be a director, not because he doesn't know how to do it. He does know how to do it very well, but he doesn't like being with people. He's a director. You're with people all day long. All day. You know, bothering you. That's what it is. You know, that's the whole job.
Oh my gosh. This kind of reminds me of the quote for some reason from one of the things that I always remembered you from, like I said, people knew you without knowing you forever, but I always remembered you from, and before this too, I'm sure, but like on Curb Your Enthusiasm, where you had that line to Larry David of the teacher does not live in the school. You know, it's kind of true back to
that show. That show, I loved doing that show. I didn't realize when I was cast in that show. I didn't realize that that's all improvised. I just didn't know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's an improvised show.
Oh, yeah, I knew that, but you weren't aware of that. So, like, did you ask for a script and they were like, sorry, no, we give you the bullet points of where the scene needs to go and that's it? Or how does that work?
Well, I just showed up on the set.
Yeah, thinking like, I didn't get my script yet.
You get this little teeny piece of paper, like a Chinese fortune cookie thing, a little teeny, thing. And it says,
location.
Well, I knew that I was playing Larry's psychiatrist. That I knew.
I'm just so great at that.
But it
I
says,
love it. Yeah.
Thank you. It says you meet Larry at this baseball card show, this kind of sports memorabilia show, and he wants to talk, and then you wind up billing him, and he's surprised that you billed him. That's all it says. It's like the whole outline, but it's just the outline. So the first couple of times we did it, I was kind of like, oh, it's funny to see you here at the baseball card show. You're like, it wasn't very funny.
You're just establishing the scene kind of in a way, like, this is where we're at.
Right. And then I got this idea, which was I had a therapist in real life who used to name drop shamelessly. And I always thought it was very funny that he would name drop people. So I said, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be this therapist of Larry David's that is a showbiz therapist that name drops people. And then I was thinking, well, who can I name drop that's like really like not that impressive? Like, who can I think of that people will know, that Larry will know, but won't be like won't be phenomenal. So I had a friend that used to like. He used to like Mark Farner, the guitarist from Grand Funk Railroad. And he would tell, this is when I was in grade school, he would say, Mark Farner is great. He only plays the important notes. He doesn't play the unimportant notes. So the name Mark Farner, who I think was Grand Funk Railroad's lead guitarist, if I remember right, I think Grand Funk, he stuck in my mind. So I thought, I'm gonna do something with Mark Farner, but of course, a psychiatrist worth his salt would not intentionally mention someone's name, but it might slip out. So I had this idea. I said when we were at the baseball card show, I said, let me tell you about another client of mine. I don't want to tell you who he is, but he's the guitarist for Grand Funk Railroad. And then I said, well, I guess you can just look at the CD. His name is Mark Farner. Anyway, so I sure reviewed his name that way. And then later on, they loved that. They thought that was really, I was doing it.
Oh, good.
I was actually cracking up.
Oh,
later
good.
on, one of the writers on the show said to me, do it with somebody like really famous, like much more famous than Mark Farner. So I thought, well, who can I do that's really, really, really famous? Who can I do that? But I could allude to him, but without revealing his name. So I thought, well, Star Wars, right? I'll come up. I said, we were talking about, like, he was angry at me for charging him for the baseball card show conversation. So I said, you can liken this to the relationship that a client of mine has with prostitutes. I don't want to tell you who he is, but he did direct Star Wars. So Larry, of course, knew who directed Star Wars. So I said, yeah, well, he doesn't, even though he only hires them for a short time, he pays them for the full hour. Because anyway, so it took me a while to get him to speed, to come up with something funny, but eventually I did.
So was it kind of daunting when you first learned it was improv, or was it just kind of your way to roll with it?
I
know you're classically trained, but...
Yeah, but I'm not improv trained. I have a lot of friends, many friends, that were part of Upright Citizens Brigade, or Groundlings, or other... those are the two main things where they train people to do improv. Yeah. I had zero improv training. I mean, I once in a while, I can be fast on my feet sometimes, occasionally, but I have zero training, zero, experience other than stuff I've just come up with on the fly just for fun.
Well, that was definitely an incredible role that you nailed it for sure, so.
Well, thank you.
For
I
sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That's one of those roles, I don't know if it's the save point, so to speak, using video games like Red Dead Redemption, but it was definitely one where I already knew you, but from that point on, I was like, when I saw I definitely zoned in and looked for more stuff of yours straight up, not just like, oh, he's in this, he's in everything,
Well, that's always, there are many compliments that are, very pleasurable to receive. There's two that are especially pleasurable. One is I like people who say, whatever you're in, I like it. Anything that you're in, I'll watch. That always makes me feel good. And the other thing that I like is when somebody says, oh, I can't imagine anybody else playing that part. Like, like for example, in A Serious Man, that character, that Cy Abelman, that character, Ethan Cohen told me very flatteringly that he thought that was the best movie monster ever created.
Wow.
And that made me feel very good. And he is a monster, but kind of a
Yeah, it's kind of like coming from him. That's like virtual fact, as close as you can get to it in a way. If you think about it, you know what I mean? Yeah, that too. I mean, yeah, him being who he is, even if it is, yeah, wow, outside of himself. If he just saw it, even saying that, but wow, yeah.
That's what you always hope for, is that people think of the character as you and you as the character. And it's funny, I'm often called upon to play, very kind of authoritative, sometimes intimidating characters, which is funny because in real life, obviously I'm a goofball. Everybody knows that. But I look a certain way, and I guess I'm capable of convincing people that I'm a certain way. So I get to play a wide variety of things. And I especially like playing evil characters, because often I'm playing funny characters, so I get a chance to play it downright. I did a film, for example, called Lying and Stealing, in which I play an unapologetic, sadistic villain, which I really enjoyed, because it's an unusual, kind of thing for me to play that kind of an unfunny, just kind of scary villain. So that was a lot of fun and interesting to do that. So that was an unusual and pleasurable experience.
Do you know where that's available to watch? 'Cause I'd love to see that, because I don't think I've seen that one. It's such a different role for you.
It was on HBO Max for a while now. It's now known as Max.
Yeah,
It may still be. I'm not sure.
I almost can't say just Max to people. It just seems so weird. It just seems like no one will know it's Max. I would say HBO Max. So yeah.
I have a friend. I don't want to go into this in too much depth, because I have a friend who is a executive there, and she is responsible for all the promotion. But that's the effect of the new guy who took over this new combined company of Discovery and Max. She was, it seems very odd to me. I mean, I'm not an expert in promotion, but it seems very odd that they would have built up the HBO name.
Yeah.
For so long, everybody knows that in the cable world, HBO is, has.
Well, yeah, there's this kind of je ne sais quoi kind of gravitas to it. You know what I mean? Like HBO is known as the premium place.
Right,
and
exactly.
so it's so wild. Yeah.
I think it didn't make any sense to me why they were, messing around with that.
Yeah, at least have HBO somewhere in there. I almost feel like maybe that's what I was doing subconsciously, showing respect to the company that's not showing respect for itself.
Yeah, it was a very strange choice. I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of thinking behind it, but I don't understand what it was.
But
yeah, that's a really. I'm not sure where it's showing now. It doesn't say, but you could probably. For sure, you can get it on Amazon by paying for it. But it's probably also playing someplace for free, also on one of the streamers. It's a kind of interesting crime movie, and the two leads. I'm the villain in it. The two leads are Theo James and Emily Ratajkowski.
Ooh, wow, yeah.
Theo James.
He was so great in, ironically enough, HBO's White Lotus recently. I always remember from that when I saw it, and and of course we know her from so much,
Yeah, I also got to undress Emily memorably undress on Emily Ratajkowski and making that, so that was something I won't forget either. Also a very interesting person who I enjoyed. And he has even Walter Backrick in it, who's great, and Isaiah Whitlock.
Wow. Yeah, I gotta check that out, Doc, for sure. Wow. And while you're truly the heart of Hollywood, like I said, like this, I would say linchpin, but like you're just in so much, you're there like the moon or something, like, for example. But say multiverse-wise, Fred Melamed never hit Hollywood hard. What would he be doing? I mean, with that voice, I almost feel like a doctor or a teacher. But what do you think? Or do you know? Oh yeah.
For much of my career, I did only voice work. I didn't do any other kind of acting. But if I weren't doing that, I mean, I think I have a natural sort of inclination towards therapy, towards understanding people. But I also think I would become fed up with listening to people's problems. I don't know. I always wanted to be a writer. That was what I always wanted. But I never really. Once I started being an was in the service of being an actor or something, or something with movies or television. It's a good question. I don't really have a great answer for it, but I might be a teacher. I like teaching. I enjoy teaching. But it's a real shame the way teachers are treated in the United States.
Yeah. I think, are they all on strike nationwide? They're on strike here, I know, in Portland.
No, that's only in Portland. But they were on strike last year here in LA. It's considering how much everybody acknowledges how important it is in raising succeeding generations, that they're not treated particularly well in my view. But there's a lot of people who fall under that same description.
To fall back on technology, I almost wonder if it's even worse now than ever in a weird way. I mean, to be a teacher.
I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some truth to that. That teachers used to be backed up more by parents than they are now, I think, and also, there's just a lot. They're up against economic realities that make it very difficult, and all that. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, I remember being shocked when I heard that way early on. I'd obviously been on since before life began, but teachers buying supplies for students and stuff. I remember that when I was a kid and stuff. It's just,
My girlfriend is a teacher, and they still do that today. Their mom is that.
Well, tell her thanks for everything she does. Wow.
I will. Yeah. I'll relay that message.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Man. Well, congrats to all your numerous awards. I know you won. You won the Robert Altman Award recently. Best Supporting Actor for Deadly Draw this year, right? Or was that last year? This year? Yeah, and Fuzzy Heads raking up the wins, including Best Picture. So, what's next on the horizon right now? Do you have a bunch of stuff lined up? I know everything's slowed with the strike, but you're probably...
I do have some things lined up. I can only talk about some of them because I can only talk about the ones where they've made an interim agreement.
Yeah,
not
of course.
about the other one.
Sure.
But there's the one Fuzzy Head that we mentioned. There's another one that will be coming out, I believe, this year called Peak Season, which I enjoyed making very much. Another one called Cat Person, just recently released.
Oh, yeah, I saw a poster for that.
Yeah, which is an interesting movie, I think. I would say, and then another one that I worked on, let's see, a movie called The Little Death.
Yeah, you play Augustus in that, right?
Right, and then another one that I just finished recently called Don't Trip.
Don't Trip. Is that in post-production, or is that out, or?
It's not out yet. It's still being edited, I believe.
The pipeline. Yeah.
And then I have a television show. I guess this is okay to promote, called The Sterling Affairs, which is all about the guy who owned and managed the Los Angeles Clippers, Donald Sterling, played by Ed O'Neill. It's all about his kind of fall from grace.
Wow, yeah.
And I'm one of those, so that I'm looking forward to also. That's called The Sterling Affairs. So those are some things that I have coming that people can, and if they want to see some stuff that already exists that's out there, I did a film some years ago that I really enjoyed called Bone Tomahawk, which is a kind of a horror Western mashup that's terrific. A film called In a World, which is all about the voiceover world. I would suggest highly.
Is that a documentary or no?
No, it's a narrative. It's a really good film by a woman called Lake Bell, who's terrific. And then I have a series that a really interesting, way out, really to me, really funny series on Netflix called Lady Dynamite.
Oh yeah, with Maria Bamford, right? She's great.
Right, with Maria Bamford, which I love. That show I love.
Oh, good. Yeah, I always love when she gets success. I see her in so much stuff, in cameos, so many cameos.
She's great.
Yeah, I saw her. I think she's in Quiz Lady.
In that show, so I really suggest that with great enthusiasm.
Okay. Lady Dynamite, everybody. Yeah. Oh wow, yeah. Man, I really wish that Barry was coming back, but no spoilers to anyone. But yeah, pretty final season for sure, right?
I love being on Barry. I love the people on that. Henry Winkler is a dear friend of mine.
Oh my God, the Fonz. I had a Fonz pinball machine I got for Christmas one year.
Really?
I mean, that Heavy Days was before my time, so to speak. You know what I mean? But it lives on forever. You know what I mean? But I just loved it, and so ever since then, as a little kid, I've always loved it. He like steals so many scenes, and like from like Scream to like just Arrested Development, where he played the lawyer and everything. I mean, he's just even. I think he showed up in not a Marvel film. What was it? But it's always a joy. Black Adam. He was in Black Adam, believe it or not.
I didn't see that. I haven't seen that one.
That's pretty good. Not so. Yeah. I don't know if I have to add this up. I'll just say it really quick, and I'll double check if we can say it's true.
He also has a book. He just wrote an autobiography, a memoir.
Oh yeah.
Called Henry did. I think it's called On Being Henry, and he sent me a copy of it. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it.
Okay, so like, I mean, the fact that you're talking about him, I'm sure it's true. But like, is he as nice as he seems? He seems like he's just so nice, which you always hope for.
Yes, he is.
Oh, great,
he is.
Great.
He's extremely nice, great guy. Everybody, knows it, and he's a wonderful guy, wonderfully sweet, warm guy.
Wow. Yeah. It's just so awesome. Oh. Wow. I'm wondering, I don't know, do you have any idea? I shouldn't say this while we're doing this now because it's not live, but it'll play in a week. But any word on the strike at all? Because I think it's supposed to be wrapping up, or the final something was supposed to happen at 5 p.m. today, right? I wonder if it got.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't figured out. I know they're near. That's as much as I know is that they're near. That's all I know.
Yeah, I just hope for obviously the best for us and all the artists and everything, obviously, because. Man, geez, it's just kind of scary. Yeah, I mean, if storytelling gets taken down, essentially, the human aspect. Just,
Yeah, I mean, it's, as I say, it's always a rough marriage between money and art,
mm-hmm.
and art usually takes the brunt of it.
Yeah. Well. I know we just met Fred, but I'm going to call it. I think I'm going to call it. You're my best Fred. BFF.
Oh, thank you.
Best Fred.
I appreciate that. I was happy to be with you.
Yeah, it's such an honor. I've been a big, huge fan. I think everyone, like I said, I really think everyone is a fan of yours, if they know it or not.
That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, anytime, of course. And thanks again for doing the show, and I've probably taken enough of your time. But thanks so much for chatting with us.
My pleasure. I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah. I mean, we're all certain to watch your continued success in all your entities.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, man.
My pleasure.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, friends, that was the incredible Fred Melamed. You know him, you love him, and I learned a lot. Even more than I thought I would. I assumed I would. Just like I said, how he sounds like a scientist or a doctor. Or he just sounds so wise, like the father you wish was your father. I hope you learned a lot too.
This portion of that Kev 1 show is supported by Bohemian Dream Gifts, made with organic and natural oils that nourish and hydrate your skin. Man, I don't know if it's the weather outside or the gym that was killing my skin, because my right elbow on the... it itched like the Dickens, like I was becoming like the lizard from Marvel Comics. I think it's that machine where you put your elbow in and do the lifts, for the bicep. But I was itching my skin like crazy during, I won't say who because I don't want them associated with rough skin, with one of our guests here in the near future here. But my right elbow was getting ashy and getting red and irritated. Anyway, I used some of the promotional cookie dough body oil from Bohemian Dream Gifts that they gave us, and my skin... I'm not kidding. Came back. I can vouch for that one. The cookie dough oil body oil. The cookie dough body oil brought my skin back to life like an Evanescence song. I'm not kidding. My skin is smooth and happy again. 100%. You can buy cookie dough oil on Etsy at the Bohemian Dream Gifts shop. Check out their other stuff as well. But that's one that I swear by now. And as soon as my promotional one runs out, I'm going to order some myself. So go to Etsy and visit the Bohemian Dream Gifts shop today.
Well, friends, the theater lights have come back on overhead. Please clean up the candy wrappers you snuck in and traverse safely. See you next week, or superfans online at patreon.com/thatkev one show. Good night.